448. Romans chapter 12, page 945. So we've been working our way through the book of Romans chapter 12, one verse at a time. We're going to look at one verse today. So I mentioned a moment ago that this is annual meeting day. I'm going to give you a glimpse into my former ministry. In my past ministry in the church I was at in Fargo, on annual meeting day, I would always very creatively give this state of the church message. It was just brilliant, by the way. People would stand up and applaud at times during the message. It was the weirdest thing because they would stand up in sections. Not everybody at the same time. Anyway, I don't do that anymore. But it was kind of interesting how this fell because we do have our annual meeting today, so I've been thinking about that as well and kind of the organization and business of our church. And we have a verse today that comes in our order of Romans chapter 12 that kind of allows me to share something about what I believe are some core values of our church. So I wanted to let you know that before we read together verse 13. So it's chapter 12, verse 13. If you find it, I'd like you to read it with me out loud. When God's people are in need, be ready to help them. Always be eager to practice hospitality. Let's read it one more time. When God's people are in need, be ready to help them. Always be eager to practice hospitality. So there are two ladies, a Yankee and a Southern Belle. They are sitting next to each other on an airplane. The Southern Belle turns to the Yankee and asks, "So where are y'all from?" Was that pretty good? Been working on my Southern accent all week. So where are y'all from? Okay, that was better. All right, thank you. Where are y'all from? The Yankee replies, "I am from a place where we do not end our sentences with a preposition." Without missing a beat, the Southern Belle bats her lashes and asks, "So where are y'all from, witch?" Actually cleaned that one up a little bit, just to kind of give you a heads up, yeah. So we're going to talk a little bit about hospitality today and helping people in need. And we're going to start with our question. Here it is. Here it is. Here it is. There we go. Who is someone who has helped you in a time of need? If you are new, we ask a question every week. People are invited to answer it. You get these guys' attention. They'll bring a microphone around. You stand up. You speak directly into the mic. Give us a brief answer. You are welcome to share a name, but you don't have to. Maybe a word about what they did to help you would be nice. So who is someone who helped you in a time of need?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jamie.
Hey, Jamie.
Well, I can't take credit away from the church and from everyone in here because, if it wasn't for the Lighthouse and the people inside here, I don't know where I would be today. But there's someone, that's really special. I'm not really going to put them on the spot, but they know who they are. That's, bent over backwards several times for me to help me out, even when, there was struggles in their own life, and it was just really grateful that I am really grateful that I have that person in my life that sticks their neck out for me even when she's struggling.
Thanks, Jamie.
Hi, my name is...
Nope, you're okay. Speak right into the mic.
My name is Julie.
Hi, Julie.
Hi, and by the way, it's where y'all from?
Yeah. I'll work on it, yeah.
So anyway, I'm grateful for my friend Shante because I was trying to find God again, and she's the one that says, "Hey, we go to church." So she's brought me a few times, and so I am very grateful for my friend.
Yeah, we're glad you're here. That's very cool to hear someone say, "Thank you for inviting me to church." That's very cool.
Hi, I'm Joni.
Hi, Joni.
This is my first time here. Woo-hoo. Hallelujah. And I'm going to mention someone who a couple of you people know is Ellen Zilmer, is my cousin. And she has a great faith, and she's very supportive of me. But if I believe anything else, God works through people. And I've felt that over and over, not just from her. And people are put in my life for a reason. And there's always, for me, a good reason. Praise the Lord.
Thank you for sharing that.
Good morning, family. My name is Benjamin.
Hey, Benjamin.
A couple of years ago, I did my last tour in the system. If anybody's gone to jail for something, that's when you see most of the cops, they want you to clean up everything you've ever done in any place you've ever done it. So that's what a tour is. And I was in there. I didn't know what I was going to do when I got out. I was trying to think of ways all by myself of how am I going to conquer the world when I got out. And a gangster came up to me with all his prison tats, and you could tell where he's been and how many times just by reading his skin. And he wasn't a good person. He did a lot of bad things. But at that moment in his time, he was in a place where he picked up a Bible and he handed it to me and he said, "You need this." And I didn't even know this guy. And since then, I've seen him, here and there, and he's not doing well again. But in that moment in his life, he did well enough for me and changed my life without knowing it, because that led me to Kathy out in Polk County, and that led me to Darrell Lyndon Smith, who led me here. And I haven't looked back. Thank God for that.
God bless you, Benjamin. Thank you. Who else like to share? Right over there, Jason.
Hi, my name is Sharon. When my husband was very ill with cancer and I was not feeling very well myself, we had two people, different ones at different times, coming to me from Atonement Church to give us communion, to read the Bible with us, have a prayer with us, and that was very meaningful to have them come over.
Yeah, thank you, Sharon. It's awesome. Anybody else?
My name is Alex.
Hey, Alex.
Hey. I just want to say that Jamie over here, he had helped me. He had to wait a while, but he had given me a ride from work because, it's like minus 23 degrees out. And, I work at a bar, and that's all the way in Moorhead, and it takes me 2 hours to get here. But he had given me a ride, and just wanted to say thank you and bless him for helping me out when I needed him.
Thank you. Often it's very simple things, isn't it? Yep.
Well, I think everybody can relate with this one. I'm grateful for God.
Thanks, Sean. All right, we can do one more if anybody wants to share. Anybody else? All right, going once, going twice. Nobody wants to add anything after God. It's hard to kind of, all right. All right, thank you for sharing those things. We discussed that at 6:30. Love to see you back. So I mentioned that we're going to talk a little bit about Lighthouse Church and some core values. And I want to start by telling you that you may have noticed that I am very intentional here at Lighthouse about identifying and seeking out people who are new, for example, on a Sunday morning. If you are a Lighthouse regular, you may not get many strokes from me when you are here for worship. I suspect that's not why you come, but one of the things that you should know is that if things are upside down in your life or inside out, you will probably need to tell me if you want me to know. I tend to ignore gossip. In fact, I try to squash it, especially around this place. And one of my life's mottos, I've shared this before, is ignorance is bliss. I feel like my life is better if I don't know about everyone's drama, and I am much less likely to get involved in it. Does that make sense? You can take that for whatever it's worth. Actually, I've learned in the ministry that it's so important to be very intentional about welcoming newcomers. And that is especially true here at Lighthouse. People often come here for a very specific reason. And usually it's not that they're just church shopping, although that happens once in a while. But at a minimum, people will know something about us, and if they're church folks, they may come and think this might be a good place for me to be able to serve and to kind of reach people who are either hurting or don't know about Jesus. But often the reason why people come to our church family, our little church here, is because they have some sort of a life-controlling issue that they're dealing with. Might be an addiction or a loved one. It might be anger or a past mistake and the consequences of that. For many, it's a mental illness, depression or anxiety, loneliness or grief or a strained or broken relationship, or as is the case oftentimes, maybe a spiritual void that for one reason or another it just seems time to work on. And I have learned that for many people, it can be hard to walk in the front door the first time they come here. And I often meet people who say that, well, they tried to come 2 or 3 times before they walked up the steps and actually came in. And I've learned to kind of understand that whether it's social anxiety or other things, for many it might be a past experience with the church. And I suspect that there's a few people here who've had maybe a bad experience with churches sometime in your past. Or maybe it's a struggle with God. Or it might be because of shame that sometimes, often, people struggle with when they realize that life isn't going that well and they don't have life put together like they think they should. The reason I know this is because, not just because people tell me, but because I've had trouble walking into some places myself in the past. And I have had a couple of opportunities in my own life to make some long, difficult walks into places because of the struggles and mess of my life. For example, I remember walking into the building that housed the treatment center where I was going for my first assessment for alcohol use. And I remember that day like it was yesterday. I also remember my walk into the treatment group the first night and how difficult that was and how much I wanted to turn around and run. Anybody able to identify with me? Now, it's interesting. The second time I went back for treatment and the third time I had to go back for treatment, they were a little easier walks, but they were still difficult. I remember my first walk into a couple of AA meetings, and how nervous I was, and how important it was in my life at that time to have people welcome me and not judge me, and people who greeted me with a sense of warmth and understanding and acceptance. You've probably heard me share before that the first vision that I was given for Lighthouse Church was given to me in such a meeting. In a building not very far from here called the Clubhouse, where I sat in an incredibly diverse group of people, different races, different economic backgrounds and statuses, different spiritualities, but there was kind of a sense of united purpose, and there was a sense that everybody there was welcome, and everybody there was going to receive the support and the encouragement of others. And it occurred to me way back then that someday I would like to help lead a church that looked a lot like that, because churches need to look more like that everywhere you go. So I'm very intentional about trying to welcome people into our faith community who are new. I have a huge sense that how people are welcomed could make a significant difference in their life. And I'm also well aware that some people come here as a last resort. And some people come here and how they are welcomed may make a life and death difference for them. I try to remember all of the time that every person is someone that God loves and that Jesus died for. So if you are a regular here at Lighthouse Church, I wanted to tell you as a family member of this community that I want to invite you to join me in welcoming guests when you come here, whether it's on a Sunday morning or during the week. The people that God has brought here are guests in our house, and how we greet them and welcome them into our community may make a huge difference in their life. And I'm hoping that you can help me create an atmosphere of hospitality. One of the things that often happens in a church, and we can run the risk here, is because a lot of you this has kind of become your life community in many ways. Most of your friends are here. So when you come here, you're hanging out with your friends. And you may think, this is really a friendly place. But what you're experiencing is that you're being friendly with your friends. And so for people who are in the place that you might have been once coming, not sure what they were walking into, they may feel ignored. And so together we can create and maintain an environment where people can come and be welcomed. Paul, in Romans chapter 12, verse 13, he says this, "Rejoice in our confident hope, be patient in trouble." I'm reading the wrong verse. "When God's people are in need, be ready to help them. Always be eager to practice hospitality." When God's people are in need, be ready to help them and always be eager to practice hospitality. I've been thinking about this verse and what it means for us today. And I decided to break it into two places and just talk about each one a little bit. So the first is this. Why don't you read it with me? When God's people are in need, be ready to help them. So people come here all the time, as I mentioned, almost every day of the week in need of one sort or another. It's a huge command that Paul gives to his followers, to Jesus' followers. It's a tall order. The needs that people bring to this place are very diverse. They are often significant, sometimes critical, and you and I are called to help. So we as a church decided early on that we can't do everything at Lighthouse Church, and especially in our downtown location here. So we tried to answer this verse in obedience and faithfulness by, first of all, realizing that we need to do what we do to do it very well. So here's the first thing that we decided. So let's decide what we are going to do and then do it well. So do what you do. Say do. Do what you do very well. And that's kind of what we decided. So what are some of those things that we decided we can do very well? Here's a quick list, okay? Number one, we can tell people about Jesus. That's the foundation of what we do here. It's at the core of everything that we do, that we have a God who is madly in love with us, and we want people to know that. Secondly, we can support and encourage recovery. We are a recovery-based church. Recovery is behind a lot of what we do, and so we want to encourage and support recovery for people who come to this place for that reason and for others. Number three, we can provide emotional support and spiritual support in groups of people. So we're always encouraging you to find a group, to get connected with other people. I'll say a little bit more about that in a while. And a fourth thing that we can do and do well is we can do public gatherings of worship and learning. What we're doing now, and by that I don't mean just the music, we strive to do that well, or the message that I might share, but also just the fellowship, the sense of community that you walk into when you come here. And then the fifth thing, and this is kind of important, is we decided that we want to be the best bridge that we can be to other resources. So we're not going to be a place where you can come and get a meal every day, but we can bridge you to where those are available in our community. We don't have a food shelter, but we can help you get to where there is one. We may not provide housing here, but we know the places that do, and we can help you find maybe a place that even if a shelter if you need that. We don't provide long-term counseling here, but we can get you to places or be a bridge to the places that might be able to help you with those kind of resources. So those 5 things were things that we kind of thought maybe we can do these well. And they've shaped a lot of what we do as a church. So, for example, a lot of you know about a program called Free Through Recovery. It's a program supported by the state of North Dakota where there are care providers who walk with people who are on probation and parole as they re-enter society. So it was kind of a no-brainer for us to say, yeah, we should get involved in that, because not only do a lot of these people already come to our church, but these kind of fit within the things that we're trying to do well. Also, just want you to know that we have an agape fund in our church. Agape is a Greek word for love. And we want you to know that there's a fund that some people donate into our church that I can use to help people who are in an emergency need within our church. I don't help people regularly. I'm pretty careful with the fund. But I want you to know about it, that if you are in a critical need, that we do have some dollars that we can possibly help you with. And I think that that's an important thing for our community to know. Also, there might be some of you who want to donate towards that fund. Here's the thing, though, that I want you to know as we kind of think about our unique ministry in this place. We want to help and encourage you to begin to be responsible for your own basic human needs if you are in a place where you're kind of getting back into life. We want to help and encourage you to begin to be responsible for yourself, for your own basic human needs. In fact, let me share with you Galatians chapter 6, verses 4 and 5. They're going to be on the screen. You can read them with me. Pay careful attention to your own work, for then you will get the satisfaction of a job well done, and you won't need to compare yourself to anyone else, for we are each responsible for our own conduct. So here's what I want you to know. If you need help, ask. If you keep asking for the same help, then something needs to change. Does that make sense? All right, so that's what I'm talking about. All right, I want to share a reading with you this morning that comes from a book that I was given at Christmas. Some of you know that I've been very interested in learning more about Native American culture and spirituality, since we have many of that heritage who come to our church throughout the week. So I was given a book titled Embers, One Ojibwe's Meditations by Richard Wagamese. Very interesting book. I've been kind of reading it as part of my morning devotions, and I read a couple of pages. And it's I don't think he's a Christian, but it has been very insightful for me in my learning, but also he speaks truth in a lot of ways, and I wanted to share a little reading that I came across that spoke truth. Have you ever, for example, been kind of thinking about or dealing with something some week, and then you read something and it like is speaking right to you? That's what this did for me this week. So here it is. He has this little conversation in his own head, and it's this: sometimes when things are hardest, it feels like Creator's not listening. Anybody here ever feel like that? And then the response comes from somebody he titles Old Woman. It says, Creator can do whatever Creator chooses. When we are in doubt or confusion or fear, she could send us thunderbolts or lightning or a huge pile of unexpected cash. That would be kind of cool. But most of the time, she sends people. People are the miracles that emerge from the ripped and worn pattern of your life and help you stitch it back together. You learn to see the pattern better then. That's such a brilliant quote, because it goes so well with really how we've tried to design ministry here. You've heard me say before that the best way to serve in our church is to come alongside other people and to just kind of learn to walk with them and love them and care for them. And, I'm a believer that sometimes God can and will heal in an instant, supernatural way. And that is so cool when it happens. It gives us a glimpse into the, power of God, that sometimes God will heal instantaneously, supernaturally, and quickly. But in my experience and in my ministry, God's healing rarely comes quickly. Usually it comes slowly as we go through the storm that we are facing. And often the healing even comes in a way that's different than we prayed for. And God brings healing into our lives by sending people to walk through it with us. This was definitely true for me in my own journey several years back when I was struggling with depression and with addiction. And it wasn't until I really began to open myself up to the people that God had brought around me. Some of you here today. It wasn't until I began to open myself up to those people that I was able to find a little bit of healing and recovery in my life. But I realized that it took a great deal of humility and attention and listening ears and trust and even some failures. It was not an easy road. But the healing is that God desires to often bring into our life is not removing the storms, but walking through them with us. So I wanted to share this with you. You and I, we grow the most when we are saved through the storm instead of from the storm. I think that's going to be on the screen maybe. We grow the most when we are saved through the storm instead of from the storm. So if you are in the midst of a storm right now, it may feel like God is absent. What I want you to know is that God is most close right now at this time, because God desires to grow us and to walk through it with us. And the people that God may be bringing around you, or your very presence in this church, may be God's will for you at this time to kind of walk with you in a way that will bring healing and recovery into your life. So that's the first part of the verse. The second part of chapter 12, verse 13 is this. Why don't you read it with me? Always be eager to practice hospitality. Always be eager to practice hospitality. Grab a Bible and turn to Matthew chapter 7 with me. In our church Bibles, it is page 804. Matthew chapter 7. Page 804 in our church Bibles, 1206 in the Recovery Bible. These are going to be familiar verses to most of you. I'm going to begin reading at verse 1. Can you follow along? Jesus says, "Do not judge others, and you will not be judged, for you will be treated as you treat others. The standard you use in judging is the standard by which you will be judged. And why worry about the speck in your friend's eye when you have a log in your own? How can you think of saying to your friend, 'Let me help you get rid of the speck in your eye,' when you can't see past the log in your own eye? Hypocrite, first get rid of the log in your own eye, then you will see well enough to deal with the speck in your friend's eye." It's interesting. I've been thinking a lot about what it means to practice hospitality. And it occurs to me that coffee and treats on Sunday mornings are great. But you can serve Starbucks and Cinnabons and not be hospitable. Turn and tell someone around you, but it would be nice. You can have smiley greeters at the door and come in and sit in those comfortable recliners that they have in the movie theaters, and the church might still not be hospitable, but say, "I'd like to try it." Turn and tell someone. So here's what I think is true, especially in a community like ours. True hospitality is found when people do not judge one another. True hospitality is found when people are committed to not judging one another. And I want us in this faith community to practice true hospitality. Let me share a couple of Bible verses. First is Philippians chapter 2, verses 3 and 4. Can you read it with me? Let's read out loud. "Don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Be humble, thinking of others as better than yourself. Don't look out only for your own interests, but take an interest in others too. Philippians 2, verses 3 and 4. So let's look at Galatians 6, verse 3. Why don't you read it with me? If you think you are too important to help someone, you are only fooling yourself. You are not that important. Isn't that like the greatest verse ever? Don't think you're too important to help somebody. You're really not that important. Here's the thing. I want to be clear about this, especially at this service, and I appreciate everybody that's in here now, hanging with me. We tolerate a lot of things in this church, and we tolerate a lot of distractions in this church. But I wanted to share with you tonight or this morning 3 things that we don't tolerate, and then I want to talk about kind of the context of our unique church culture, especially at our 1045 service. So here are 3 things that we do not tolerate in this church. The first is this: racial or ethnic discrimination of any kind. Judgments based on race or ethnic heritage are not accepted and will not be tolerated in this place. A person's skin or native heritage does not make any difference, in a sense, in this community. We are all equal. We are all children of God. A person's skin and native heritage is no different between you and me. We're going to celebrate our Lord's imagination and creation and rejoice that He did not make us all the same. Amen? I mean, it's awesome that God did. How boring would it be if God made us all the same? Thank God that He made people to reflect the diversities of the colors of His creation. And I rejoice in the different ethnic backgrounds that we have here. All God's children are created in His image. Praise the Lord that our Lighthouse family reflects at least a fraction of the diversity of God's kids. You with me? Amen. Second thing we will not tolerate here is we will not tolerate favoritism or discrimination based upon financial or economic status. Judgments or favoritism based on financial status. You know, we have you might not know this, we have even a more diverse church economically than we do racially or from backgrounds ethnically. And we try to take that great care in any of the planning of our ministries to remember that we have people in our church who are still officially incarcerated or are living in homeless shelters, and we have people who God has truly blessed and are well off. And we have everything in between. And so, you know, praise the Lord that God has brought the diversity of financial status into our congregation, but we will not discriminate about it. And we take great care in thinking about it when we plan. I have in my notes to have you look up James 2. We're not going to be able to do that today because of time, but if you want to read about that a little bit, James chapter 2 tells us that even back in the early church, people in the church were starting to show favoritism to those who had a lot as opposed to those who had very little. And here, it doesn't matter. Number 3, we will not tolerate judgment based upon people's past mistakes. And I want to lump a bunch of things in regards to this. I would lump addictions into this or some of the battles with mental illness, because we make mistakes all the time with those things. I believe that addiction is a disease, but I made all sorts of mistakes with my disease. Am I the only person who ever made mistakes with their addiction? Okay, good. Last service they said yes, so I was really freaking out. So, the truth of the matter is that to be human is to make mistakes. Some of the mistakes we make in this life are big. Some of the mistakes we make in this life are small, but we all make mistakes. Here's the deal. The ground is as flat as Fargo, North Dakota in front of the cross. And so when God looks at us, He doesn't see big sinners and little sinners. He sees sinners. And so He doesn't really see big mistakes and small mistakes. He just sees mistakes. And the reality is that we have created a culture where you can come and not be judged upon your past. And that is so important. We are going to preserve until my dying day that reality. Now, we know that we need to be careful and wise. We know that it's possible that people will come here with wrong motives, and it happens now and then. We need to be watchful. We need to make sure that everyone is safe. And those who come here should not assume that our non-judgmental spirit means that anything goes. So I just wanted to share with you this morning that if you're going to call this church your home, if you're going to come here regularly, that you too have a responsibility to be respectful. And this might be new, the whole church thing might be new, but you have a responsibility if you're going to come here regularly to seek to learn maybe what it means to be part of a church on a Sunday morning. You need to learn from the moment you get out of your car or the shuttle or walk here from wherever you're coming. You need to learn to maybe watch your language a little bit when you're around this place. You have a responsibility to do those things. Those of you who ride the shuttles, it is one of the greatest joys of my life to see you coming on a regular basis to this place. And we just want you to know that you are always welcome here. But we also know that at times there can be lots of distractions within our services. And so try to learn from the people around you. And if this isn't the place for you, we understand. But while we're here, we're going to challenge you to try to learn from others what it means to come to church and what it means to begin to grow. Here's one of the things, if you did ride a shuttle, here's one of the things that I've noticed over the years, because we have a lot of people, some of them who are here today, who rode shuttles here, and then we didn't see them for a long time, and then they've ridden a shuttle back again. And then we didn't see them for a while, and then they've ridden a shuttle back again. And I'm gonna say this as delicately as possible, and I know I'm only talking to a few of you. I'm going to tell you when I begin to see the difference just from your coming on a Sunday morning or a Thursday night is when you start sitting in a different place and with different people. Enough said. All right. We're so glad you're here. So I want to be clear. Paul says that be ready to help, practice hospitality, not sometimes, but always. So a word to the rest of the church. If you are easily upset by people who don't yet know how to behave in church, there are some things that you may need to do. One of them is to remember that you once had to learn what it means to sit in church. And so maybe remember that time from when you have come. Another might be that you may have to sit in a different place. Here's the deal. If you come every Sunday, you will notice that I sit right here. I hardly notice a distraction when I sit right here. And so if you are really bothered by distractions, move your butt to a different chair. There, we said it clearly. I will also mention that we have 3 services, and so other services may be less distracting. And I always want to say this graciously and carefully, and I haven't said it very often to people, but once in a while I have shared that there are about 200 other churches in this town with fewer distractions. And I would guess you'd be welcome in any of those. But we have created a unique environment in this place where people can come in their mess and in their lack of understanding of what it means to go to church and hear about a God who loves them and not be judged by the people around them. Are you with me? Amen. All right. So I love the fact that I feel comfortable inviting people to church, especially people. I love the people who tell me, "Oh, I'm never going to church," or "I'm never going to church again." That's really common, and I run into those people all the time. So last Sunday at this service, there was a young lady who came to church who I had been inviting to church for 3 years, and it was her first Sunday. And I was so excited. She wasn't that excited, but I was really excited. And she came, and I had a little correspondence with her this week. I told her I was going to talk about her on church without a name. And I said, did you feel welcome? And you want to give me a little feedback? And she said that she always feels welcome here. See, she comes to other things that go on here. She says, I always feel welcome in your church. The people always make me feel welcome. She said, it's your God that I have an issue with. And I knew that. That wasn't news to me, of course. But there might be somebody else who kind of is thinking the same thing this morning. And that was a messenger conversation, so all she got back was a smiley face. But I'm looking forward to the next conversation because I know that she has an issue with my God, or the God we teach about here. But I'm looking forward to telling her that God does not have an issue with her. He's just madly in love with her. And he so much wants her to know that she is loved and forgiven. He wants so much for you to know that you are loved and forgiven, and that he simply wants to be part of your life. And he wants to begin to walk with you. And he wants to begin to offer you something that's going to fill you on the inside that nothing in your life will ever fill.